Is this frequency in use? Hello and welcome to another episode of 73 in the RGV, the podcast dedicated to amateur radio operators in the Rio Grande Valley and across the airwaves. I am David, call sign Kilo India 5 Delta Oscar Golf. And today we are going to slow things down for just a bit. The FT8 episode that I talked about needs to be prefaced with, I'm sharing some basic information so it kind of puts everything in perspective. And so to slow it down, I'm delaying that episode for a while. In episode 9, this episode of 73 in the RGV, I want to talk about something that every ham experiences, whether you realize it or not, and that's called radio propagation. Now, if you are brand new to amateur radio, this may sound like another big technical word, but don't worry. There's nothing to worry about. I'm going to break it down into simple terms. And if you are a seasoned operator, well, stick with me because I will sprinkle in some advanced material and some practical tips that you might find useful, especially here in the Rio Grande Valley where we got some unique propagation quirks. Let's start with the basics. Propagation is simply the way radio signals travel from one place to another. Think about it this way. Think about this. Now you can stand outside and shout, and someone across the street can hear you. But if you want someone 10 miles away to hear your voice, well, you're going to need a telephone, or in our case, a radio. Now, sometimes when we key up our radios, the signal goes exactly where we expect, just a couple of miles to a local repeater. Other times, you might hear stations from another state, another country, or even another continent. And other times, well, you cannot even reach someone across town. That's propagation. That's propagation. It's the invisible hand that decides where our signals go and how far they can travel. Here in the Rio Grande Valley, propagation can be really interesting because we are down near sea level and surrounded by wide, flat terrain. Our VHF and UHF signals, the 2-meter band, a 70-centimeter band, often travel farther than you would expect. And when you throw in the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf Coast, Gulf of America, the Gulf Coast, and warm weather, sometimes we get tropospheric ducting, which can bend signals along the coast. That means you might be talking hundreds of miles away on 2 meters, almost like you're working HF. Now on the HF bands, our location down here in South Texas is a blessing because, well, we often get excellent skips into Central America, South America, and depending on conditions, even into Europe and Africa. And on that rare occasion, somebody will say Oceania, the Southeast Asia. So, for operators in the RGV, propagation gives us a special advantage. You just have to know when and where to listen. All right, let's touch on just enough science so this makes some sense. Radio propagation is heavily influenced by the ionosphere. Picture the ionosphere as a big invisible mirror way up in the sky. It is made up of layers of charged particles that are created when the sun's energy hits our atmosphere. Now the different layers, there's 3 of them, D, E, and F. And those layers affect our signals in different ways. Sorry about that. Golly, I need to slow down. I had not enough coffee. Or too much coffee. Either way. So let's talk about the D layer. Remember, there's D, E, and F. So D layer. The D layer tends to absorb lower frequencies during the day, which is why 160 meters and 80 meters can be noisy in daylight, but come alive at night. Now, the F layer, on the other hand, is the one that reflects HF signals back to Earth, giving us that long-distance skip. This is why the sun matters so much. When solar activity is high, more sunspots, more solar flux, the ionosphere gets more energized and can reflect higher frequency signals better. That's why listening to that propagation report is really important. Those of you that listen on the Valley Information Net, you'll get that weekly propagation report and check it out. So that's when it's reflecting higher frequency signals better, when that ionosphere really lights up, that's when 10 and 15 meters really sparkle. They really shine. They're really working. So you can work the world on just a small antenna and low power. But when the sun is quiet, little to no sunspots, those bands go dead. So, and then we start looking more at 20, 40, or even 80 meters to make contacts. Now, technicians, well, we might not have access to that. We do have access to the 10 meter, and we'll talk about band plans in a later episode. So for VHF and UHF, which is typically what technician class licensees have access to, the 2 meters and the 70 centimeters, it's usually line of sight, like a flashlight beam. But under certain conditions, like during temperature inversions along the Gulf Coast, the atmosphere tends to bend the signal. And suddenly your handheld radio is reaching repeaters hundreds of miles away. That is tropospheric ducting. And here in the valley, it is something we can experience more often than other operators farther away, farther inland actually. Now, let's get a little practical. Here are some real-world rules of thumb for common amateur radio bands, especially if you're just starting out. So on the 2 meters, the 144 megahertz, and the 70 centimeters, the 440 megahertz, these are your bread and butter VHF and UHF bands. They are perfect for local contacts, repeaters, and emergency communications. And here in the RGV, because the land is so flat, you might get excellent coverage. And keep an eye out for coastal ducting events. You might suddenly hear repeaters from Houston, Corpus Christi, or even Louisiana. Every once in a while it happens. Now the 40 meters or the 7 megahertz, this is a fantastic band, especially in the evenings. It is a great place to connect with stations across the state of Texas, and neighboring states. Now, if you're running a simple dipole antenna in your backyard, you will probably have good luck here after sunset. 20 meters, that's the 14 megahertz. The workhorse of DX, that's what that is, the workhorse of DX. And if you want to talk outside the United States, this is where a lot of action is. Now, from the valley around sunset, 20 meters often opens beautifully, letting you work Central America, South America, and beyond. It happens. Just listen, people will talk and they'll tell you. Now, the 10 meters, 28 megahertz. Now, that's open again to the technicians, and we'll cover that in the band plan episode. So for technicians, you do have access to the 28 megahertz. Not all of it, not all of the 10 meters, but a good part at the beginning. So this band is a gem when the solar cycle is up. See, during the day, when conditions are right, you might work stations all over the world. You will, with just a simple vertical antenna. Now, right now, with the solar activity kind of doing its thing, it's still up. It's still up. It looks like it's down some days, but overall it's still up in its cycle. This is a band worth checking out daily, so you got to do it every day. So when in doubt, just spin the dial. Just start looking. Start listening. Do not rely on what people say about the bands. No, because they change moment to moment. Somebody could be listening right now as I'm recording this and nothing's happening. But as soon as I'm done and I start listening in, it's active. It's fired up. It's just hit or miss. So listen for yourself. You might be surprised what you hear. Now I'm going to talk about how you can actually predict or at least get an idea of what propagation is, what it's doing right now before you even power up. There's a couple of things you can do. You can go to VOACAP Online. This is a free website that lets you generate prediction maps. You plug in your location and see where your signals are likely to reach on any given band at any given time. It's pretty cool, but again, it's just a predictor. All right, it's not gospel, it's a predictor. There's dxmaps.com, dxmaps.com. This site shows real-time maps of who's talking to whom and on what bands. So if you see a cluster of spots from Texas to Europe on 20 meters, hey, the band is open. Get to work. Next is hamqsl.com, hamqsl.com, hamqsl. It's a one-stop shop for solar weather and propagation reports. It gives you numbers like solar flux and K index, kilo index, which seasoned operators use to judge conditions. So again, check it out. And apps, there are plenty of apps up there, a lot. There's apps you can't, they're out there. There's just so many. There's DX Toolbox, and so you can get that. There's also the propagation section on qrz.com, qrz.com. And folks, if you've not signed on to qrz.com, get yourself an account there. It's pretty cool. It's free too. So again, these are handy, and especially when you're portable, you're out on the road, you're doing something, you're traveling, you're not at your home base. Just log in real quick and check it out and see how things are going. Now, no matter what you do, you download or you review, you generate a map, whatever, do not let the numbers intimidate you. Again, use these tools as guides, then test them yourself. That's half the fun. It's getting out there and turning on and trying to tune in, and nothing's there. Then all of a sudden you can, and in some cases you can almost like hear the propagation roll in. It starts picking up, and you'll get used to it. But again, whatever values you see there, don't let them intimidate you, because they can change in a heartbeat. Now, let's get some action items. Here's some things you can do. Here's where the fun comes in. Then these are some of the things you can do this week and put them into practice. Again, get online. So if you don't have the license to transmit on 20 meters, that's okay. There's no rule that says you cannot listen. Get online, listen on the 20 meters around sunset. Log who you hear, and then when you get license, who you can contact. But if you already have your license to do it on the 20 meter band, then log that contact, know who you're talking to, and then notice the time, and then eventually you start making patterns, and you start seeing patterns, and you start identifying what's going on. Download a propagation app and check it before you call CQ, before you get out there and call CQ. Compare that map or that prediction with what you're actually hearing in your location, and you'll see how it changes. Next, keep a simple propagation journal. Write down the time, the band, the frequency, location of your contact, and after a few weeks, like I said, you're not only going to build your own personal propagation map, but you're going to start seeing some patterns, and you're going to start seeing how at sunset this goes on, how during the day this happens, and so on and so on. At sunrise, you make some pretty cool contacts at sunrise too. So don't forget, because we've got that great big ocean right near us, so it helps. Now, these simple actions will not only make you a better operator, but they will also help you develop that sixth sense for when and where to get on the air. It's just practice, folks. Getting your feet wet, getting out there and doing it. Practice, practice, practice. All right, so propagation. Propagation is one of those things that makes amateur radio endlessly fascinating. It's always changing. Sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's wow, but no matter what it is, it's an adventure and it's worth exploring. So the next time you sit down at your rig, do not just think about the power in the antenna. I mean, definitely got to do that, but think about the invisible paths your signal is about to take as soon as you key up. So listen, pay attention, and take advantage of those opportunities when they do open up. On occasion, you'll hear stuff down here in the RGV. If you haven't already, those mornings we'll be picking up signals out of Austin, Round Rock, the Coastal Bend, Corpus, Victoria. It happens. Every once in a while we'll get somebody from Laredo. It happens. Again, check it out. It's pretty interesting. Very interesting, fun things. Great times. All right, let's take a look at the announcements. Let's take a look at the upcoming events in the Rio Grande Valley area here. We got some stuff happening. Let's hit the clubs first. The Rio Amateur Radio Club, or the Rio ARC. Again, be on the lookout. Tuesday, September 9th. It's their club meeting at 301 East Pierce in Harlingen, Texas. And again, that begins at 5:30 p.m. Tuesday, September 9th for the Rio ARC Club meeting. It's their monthly meeting. So check that out. Alrighty. The Whiskey 5 Romeo Golf Victor.org, or the official website for the South Texas Amateur Repeater Society. Again, just reminding you to check out their buy and sell. Also, don't forget to join their daily Valley information at 7 p.m. Central Time. And if you're not a licensed operator, hey, you can listen, but you cannot talk. Sorry, you cannot keep the mic. So be careful out there. Alrighty. So again, Whiskey 5 Romeo Golf Victor.org website. Let's see who else. The Rio Grande Valley Amateur Radio Club, or the RGV ARC. They just had their monthly meeting, and so again, check that out. But again, visit the rgvarc.org website, Romeo Golf Victor Alpha Romeo Charlie.org website. Again, check it out. And don't forget, Simplex Sundays, Rag Chew Mondays, and Thursdays, the Aries 3 net. So again, that's where we get to check in. So definitely check that out. The District 3 Aries net. And again, that is Thursdays 7:30 p.m. The Rag Chew Mondays, Monday at 6 p.m. Central Time. And of course, Simplex on the Simplex frequency, or the national Simplex calling frequency, 146.520 megahertz, no tone. And again, check it out. So again, visit. Alrighty, now got another one. We got this big one. This is a big one. And mark, get your calendar, get your pen, get your paper, get your calendar, get ready. This is going to happen on Saturday, September 13th. So it's at 3 Saturdays from now. Right? Yeah, wow, 3 Saturdays from now already. Don't worry, there'll be another episode between now and then. Saturday, September 13th. It is what they're calling it the All Valley Radio Club meeting, and it's going to be on Saturday, September 13th. The meeting will be for all, ALL, everyone, All Valley Amateur Radio Clubs and amateur radio operators, HAMPs, whether in a club or not. It's just to meet, and there'll be some recruitment, but you don't have to join a club to go. Just go. We're going to meet. We're going to share information, get to know everybody, get to meet everybody, shake hands. We're going to share some knowledge. There might be some skills, and a great time, definitely. Because again, when you get a chance to meet all the hams, that's definitely going to be a great time. Now, heads up. I did reach out to get a little bit more information about the agenda. Well, the agenda's still being worked on. So that's okay. So, but be prepared for something formal to come out. And again, I reached out. I got it the other day, a couple of days ago. I've just been working on putting this episode together. So I wanted to have the latest information before I actually publish this episode. And as it stands right now, August 27, that's what I know, is that they're working on the agenda. And okay, but speaking of the agenda, I haven't told you where to go. Where it's going to be at. Again, Saturday is September 13. We're looking from 9 a.m. in the morning to 12 p.m. noon in Los Fresnos. That's on the way to the island. So if you're on the interstate, right, get on the Highway 83 or the interstate, get off there at the exit to go to South Padre Island, or go in the direction of South Padre Island. You're going to run into Los Fresnos. It's going to be held at the Los Fresnos Fire Department. They got room there. It holds a lot of people. So that address, again, the Los Fresnos Fire Department in Los Fresnos, Texas, 100 Rodeo Drive, Los Fresnos. Or as they say in California, Rodeo is Rodeo Drive. Come on, we're in Texas. It's Rodeo Drive. 100 Rodeo Drive. It's really easy to find. They got plenty of room. It's going to be fun. It's on the way to the island. So if after that you want to head over to the island and for lunch, you can go that way. Or you can just head on back the other way. And there's a lot of great dining places all over. So again, there'll be more information. And I have got another episode before the 13th coming out, and hopefully we'll have the agenda by then. And again, the All Valley Radio Club meeting on Saturday, September 13, and this meeting will be for all amateur radio clubs and amateur radio operators in Los Fresnos on the 13th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, 3 hours of nonstop action. Oh, okay, here it is. They're going to keep it simple. Mention some working frequencies and what club plans are for emergency situations, other things like that. So again, that makes sense. And if we can tie in together and how to communicate with one another, it makes it even better. And so I will be checking with them later this week, and we're almost at the end of this week, but I'll probably do it early next week. But then that way, when the next episode comes out, we have the latest information. And again, if you're not a licensed ham radio operator, hey, there's nothing to say. It didn't say not to show up, but we definitely want the licensed ham radio operators, amateur radio operators, to join us out there on Saturday, September 13 at 9 a.m. to noon in Los Fresnos 100 Rodeo in Los Fresnos, Texas. So make plans to be there. It'll be fun. I'll be there. And so will a whole bunch of other people. It's going to be cool. A lot of hams all in one spot. That is crazy. Alrighty. So with that being said, that pretty much wraps up the announcements. So again, check them out. Check out all the websites. And again, all the links are down below. Now, let's wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the 73 in the RGV. If you enjoyed today's episode, do me a favor, subscribe to this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share it with a fellow ham, spread the word. If you're here in the Valley, think about joining your local amateur radio club. You can also follow me on social media for updates, resources, and more discussions on all things amateur radio. Now, all that information, including the links to the resources I mentioned earlier in this episode, they're going to be in the show notes. So if you're listening to this through Apple Podcasts, it's part of the information I got downloaded. If you're listening to this on YouTube, it's down below. And hey, thank you for listening. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. I do appreciate you. Thank you for commenting. Those of you that have commented, don't be a stranger. Alrighty. Listen, until next time, this is 73 in the RGV, and I am Kilo India 5 Delta Oscar Golf, wishing you 73.